Kent, it's good to see you again.
It's mutual.
Yeah, it's last year. It's almost been,
It's been a year now.
A year. Nelson Mandela International Day last year, and the conversation with Dr. Mandela.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But look at how much has happened since then. COVID-19.
And we thought that was going to be the biggest deal of 2020.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
But I understand that you have started a conversation series.
Yeah.
A kind of truth and reconciliation conversations focused on how we can better understand each other.
Yeah.
And address this issue of racism and difference.
Yeah.
And ethnic divide. So I'm curious, Kent, with the position that you have of being an anchor and comfortable, a wonderful career and family, what inspired you personally to want to start this conversation series?
So I didn't intend to start a conversation series, but it became clear to me that conversations needed to happen. That's because one of my very dearest friends here in Jacksonville is a man who was struggling through that first week after George Floyd had been killed, who is a person I look up to and who is a leader and who I had never seen been anything other than sure of his course in life. But we had a conversation on that Friday of that week, after everything had happened in Minnesota. Friday of that week, he said, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell my adult children who live in Atlanta and who are scared to go outside right now. And it started the conversation, just him and me, about his experience as a black man, as a leader of a black family. And I wanted to understand more. And it really, that was kind of the inspiration there. One friend who said, I'm struggling with this and I don't know what to say. And it took me to a place where I was just reading a sports article, really. I thought it was just about sports. No, it was my favorite sports writer, who was a black man, who was talking about, hey, why is it my white friends can talk to me about the NBA finals, they can call me and have a chat about anything in the sports world, but this really important topic comes up, and then where are they? And I read that and I went, I don't want that to be me. I don't want to be silent on something that is so important. So that's really what started it. And out of that moment, Khalil, I just went, okay, I'm going to call those friends that I have who may look different than me, and I'm going to say, I don't know what to say, but I'm going to say to you, I care about you. You are my friend no matter what, and especially when we're talking about there are differences because of how we look, I want you to know that I'm on your side. The way these have gone has really, I enticed people to come, hey, we'll have some food, some beverage, and we will have a discussion here. A discussion about racial reconciliation is mandatory for whoever comes. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I'll usually start that, hey, let's talk some ground rules. Here's how we're going to discuss this. Yes. And we're going to be great listeners. And we're going to listen for and we're going to look for these things. And what I've found, Khalil, is that the conversation goes on its own for an hour or an hour and a half of people offering their experiences, offering their perspectives. And what's really cool is sometimes asking questions, hey, tell me more about that, because I don't see it that way. And just as powerful, oh, I just heard your perspective. I've never encountered that, and now my eyes are open. I see around me people who are on their own saying, oh, I need to look at this differently. Oh, I feel this differently. My neighbor came to one of our conversations, and during a conversation about the monuments coming down in Jacksonville, we're saying, hey, wait a second, I don't understand this. And as I've heard in other conversations, led his comments with, I don't have a racist bone in my body, yes, but, and then gave their opinion. And it struck me, just didn't realize maybe a racist bone in his body.
Yes.
And at the end of that conversation, at the end of that evening, this person told me, Ken, I'm going to have a hard time sleeping tonight.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Because I didn't realize that I viewed it in that way. And now that I've heard people explain to me why that's offensive, why that's painful, why that hurts, I'm forced to look at things differently. And again, it goes back to, we built some relationship over the course of a few hours, and this person sharing their experience and this person sharing theirs, saying, okay, I can understand it differently.
Dr. Brown, it's really an honor to be able to talk with you today. This is a conversation for me that has so much significance in this historic moment. And so knowing the civil unrest and the backdrop of all the things happening in our country, I'm reminded that Nelson Mandela said, in the end, reconciliation is a spiritual process, which requires more than just a legal framework. It has to happen in the hearts and minds of people. When I think about that, and I look at your life and I look at the work that you're doing in education, given your positioning at this historic moment in an amazing school like KIPP, what do you think are the lessons from the life and legacy of Nelson Mandela that are instructive in this historic moment?
We can't legislate reconciliation, right? And reconciliation requires us to be proximate to one another. It requires us to be up close and personal. Up close and personal increases the opportunities that we're going to offend one another. We're going to bump into each other, run over one another, trip. It's messy, right? The work of reconciling is messy. There's so many components to it. It involves an acknowledgement that something wrong has occurred, right? For which we need to be reconciled to one another. And you're right, we are at this pivotal moment in human history. And I think we're just getting started in this moment. I don't think that any of this is going to die down. The protests might, but I think that this is long work that's going to continue to happen. And I've been thinking a lot, looking internally, doing lots of introspection, leading my organization, the schools, the school leaders, teachers, to be introspective as well. If what Nelson Mandela says is true, and this is a spiritual endeavor, we must turn inward first, right? We got to turn inward. And I'm thinking right now, Khalil, about where I fit in all of this. What's my part? What's been my part in perpetuating?
Wow.
What's been my part in perpetuating it, even as a Black woman? What's been my part in perpetuating it? What do I do? What's my responsibility to dismantle? So I'm thinking a lot about that and pushing us as an institution of schools where, oh, by the way, if we are going to have a conversation about what is happening right now, we're going to have a conversation about racism. It exists in schools. Schooling is an institution in this country. It exists in schools. So I'm pushing myself to really examine ourselves, examine our decision making, our motivation, our mindsets. This is an unprecedented time in history, and not just because of the pandemic. And how do I lead right now? Because it is messy, and I'm going to say some things. If I'm being my authentic self,
Yes.
I'm going to say some things that folks in my organization are going to be uncomfortable with. So how do I lead in this moment? How do I lead? Love is my default. Lead with love is my default. And loving does not preclude truth telling. So I banked on, these folks have known me for 5 years now. I've been here for 5 years. And if they really know me, then they know my heart for children. They know my heart for this work. So I shouldn't have to do a lot of explaining, because I've been leading in this way for 5 years. And I had to say, mattering is the minimum for Black folks. Mattering is the minimum. That's table stakes, that Black people matter, the lives of Black people matter. I need everyone who works here to be committed to Black people winning and being successful. So not just the children that we are educating, and yes, we want to see that in, test scores and in their academic performance. Bring that same fervor to how you feel about the communities that they go home to. Do you want their families to win? Because that's going to be requisite of your employment here. You got to want Black people to win and be successful. Mattering is a low threshold. That's a low bar. I'm doubling down on my commitment to racial equity, racial justice and equity. I'm doubling down. And here's what that's going to look like. I know those are words that can live up at 30,000 feet, but on the ground, here's what that's going to look like for us at KIPP Jacksonville Schools. We're going to go back and look at all of our talent practices and policies and make sure they're equitable. We're going to examine every facet of ourselves, how we choose to spend our money, where, with whom, the curricula that we select for children. Do they see themselves in the curricula? The disciplinary policies that we create, are they harmful? Like, are we perpetuating anti-Black policies? We're not going to do that. We can't say that we love our students and love their communities, and then bring them into an environment where we are actually causing the trauma. We can't do that. So my leadership in this moment is loving us, loving the children and their communities enough to turn the microscope on ourselves and say, we got to sit under this microscopic gaze and analyze every decision that we make. I'm not a politician. I'm an educator. So that's where I'm going to fight this battle. I'm going to do it in schools. And for me, the road to reconciliation starts with listening.